This edition of MacVoices is supported by you, our viewers and listeners, through our new Patreon campaign. If you get value from MacVoices, please consider helping support the show by visiting patreon.com/MacVoices. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, this is one of our Weekend With shows. This time it's the first weekend with the iPhone. I'm not sure if it's XR or XR. We will find that out in a minute. But the interesting thing about this was that I put out the call and only one person responded. I think everybody else fell in love with the previously new iPhones. And so I'm going to ask Dave Hamilton to do the heavy lifting tonight. Dave, welcome. It's good to see you.
Hey, it's good to see you too. Thanks for having me, Chuck.
Yeah, you're the only one that held out for what is it, Dave, XR or XR?
I think if you ask Apple, it's XR, but you know, I think XR is what the most of the world calls it. So there you go.
Yeah. So, first of all, thank you for doing this, because otherwise, I know it sold well, but I don't know if all the people that you and I usually hang out with or that we have on the show just decided they were going to jump in early or what. But
well, I think most of us geeks tend to think, well, I need to buy the best. So that's the XS or the XS Max, right? And I started thinking about it, and I can't not buy a new phone every year. Well, no. Hear me out on this. I understand. Of course, I cannot buy a new phone, right? But I have 4 people in my family, and we hand down phones. And so if I were to skip a year in buying a new phone, it would be a major problem. I think at some point in the future, I would have to buy 2 phones in a year. So it just makes sense to keep adding to the system and expiring the old stuff out, and that works. So I knew I'd have to get a new phone this year, and I looked at the XS. But the XR really it captured my curiosity. Like, look at what Apple has done here. They've created a phone with all the new guts, right? It's the same guts as the XS. A slightly bigger screen than the XS, slightly smaller screen than the XS Max, better battery life than anything that Apple sells in terms of a phone, and and a lower price point and pretty colors, and it's like, wow, this is really interesting. Now the screen is not as good as the XS, and I came from a 10. Okay, so I immediately noticed the lower resolution on the XR when I got it this weekend. It was even to my aging eyes, it was very obvious when if I A/B'd them back and forth. If I put the 10 next to the XR, I could look at the same photograph on both, and see, okay, the contrast is way better on the 10, and all that. OLED screen versus LCD screen, right? No comparison there. But what I did not notice it when looking at pictures alone on the XR, where I did notice it was looking at text. The text was just not as sharp. It wasn't as retina, if that makes sense. So.
Yeah, and this is something that came up when we all got the 10.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the proof in the screen was really the text, not exactly where you would have thought until you get used to it, and then all of a sudden this makes a big difference. And again, now I don't know what it's like after 12, 24, 48 hours, is if you still notice it.
Yeah, I don't. I did for the first day, and even was questioning my decision, like, okay, wait a minute, this may be okay, like, fun experiment, Dave, but and so that was Saturday. I really didn't get it until late Friday night. UPS doesn't come here until about 7 p.m., and I was already out. I had a show to play. So I set it up Friday night, but it was Saturday that I really started using it. And all day Saturday, it was this, okay. And that was the last I thought of it. So I don't think about it anymore. I just use the phone and it's fine. It's fine.
Okay, so how about one of the most important things here? Which color did you get?
Oh, I got red.
Now, is
I
that
don't know how well the light does on that. Let me take it out of the clear case. Thankfully, I was able to procure a clear case a couple of weeks ago at a PepCom event, but it's still shiny. But yeah, I got the red.
I'm not sure.
So,
I understand.
sure, Siri. That's
Now, is that a philanthropic choice, or is that just a personal preference, or what?
I have always really liked the red color. I had an iPod years ago that was product red, and I really liked that. And I do like, the philanthropic aspect of this particular mission as well. So it's definitely not against it. So in every way, I kind of like the red. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the screen was one of the first big differentiators between this and the other new iPhones.
Yeah.
Got to figure out a way to say that.
Yeah.
How about the other one? As far as I know, is the camera.
So that's interesting, right? Because I'm coming from a 10 to the 10R, and I realize that's a step that most people with a 10R would not take. Most people with a 10R are coming from a 6 or a 7 or maybe an 8, but probably not even that, right? People tend to replace their phones every couple of years, every 3 years, whatever that is. So coming from the 10, which has the dual lens camera, to the 10R, which has just the single lens camera, I was curious about that. In all of my tests, I'm finding I like the camera on the 10R better than I liked it on the 10. Now, that's not compared to the 10S, but yeah,
right.
Low light, which is where I find like the most trouble taking pictures, the 10R does a better job than the 10 did.
Really?
None of them do as good a job as like a $300 Android phone, mind you. But, Apple tries to convince us that they have the best camera experience, and that's like we need to throw that out. It's like just to get started. Most Android phones are going to do better than Apple's stuff. I don't know why that is, but that's just been my experience. I wind up testing some Android phones here and there, and it's like, oh my god, I wish I could have that camera. Or I'm at a concert. Do you ever notice this when you're at concerts and you go to take a picture with your iPhone and the guy next to you has an Android phone, and you look at the image on the screen, you're like, how is that even possible? And it just looks better. But anyway, that aside, the iPhone 10R I've had better experience with it than I did with the 10 in low light, and that sort of thing. So,
and how about the lack of the dual lens? Is that bothering you, or was that not a factor for you before?
I certainly appreciated having the second lens for zooming. But otherwise, no. I mean, portrait mode of inanimate objects or portrait mode of not faces, I played around with that a little bit, but I didn't spend a lot of time with it. Photos aren't a priority for me. I wind up taking pictures with my phone, but I've never been the one to take pictures in our family. That tends to fall to my wife. So I had to make a decision. I'm a real gadget freak, and I tend to go deep when I get into something. So I had to make a conscious decision about 12 years ago to not become a camera geek. So I'm not. So there you go.
I've struggled with that myself. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Because I know it'd be crazy. Yeah. So no.
Yeah, you can go down that rat hole, and that rat hole is very expensive too.
Oh yeah. Oh, listen, I'm all about expensive rat holes. I mean, I'm a technology geek. As you can see, I'm a musician, so I've got those bases covered. I didn't need another one. Yeah.
Got it. So that brings up an interesting question, at least in my mind. If you don't take a lot of pictures, if that's not one of your primary functions, what do you do with your phone? Is it a phone? Is it an internet device, an email or communications device? What are your primary uses?
Yeah, it's a communications device. I'm managing my email. I'm constantly looking things up on the web. I use it to, I do a bunch of podcasts, and I'm always thinking about, that idea would be great for, the next episode of Mac Geek Gab or of Small Business Show or Gig Gab or whatever. And so we have our ongoing agendas as Google Docs. So I'm always just kind of poking things into those, on the fly. Yeah, it's an internet device. I mean, I use it to manage all the various little things in my house and, those sorts of things. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we hear so many people say, well, it's the camera is so important to me, or the texting, or the email. Yeah. And I never make phone calls on it. And I can't say that that's me. I spend a lot of time on my iPhone as a phone.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I use it as a phone, email, Slack a lot, and texting amongst the family and with with other folks. Although a lot of my business stuff has been relegated to Slack and not just loose text messages, which is good. So yeah.
So you came from the 10 to the 10R. How about screen size?
I mean, it's certainly bigger. When I put them next to each other, I can see with my own two eyes. It's a bigger screen and more real estate and all that. After a couple of days with it, I don't know that like anything, you get used to it real fast. And it's a small jump up from the 10. So I don't really notice, like I'm not using it differently because the screen is so much bigger, which was certainly the case when I went to like the 6 Plus or whatever that first phone that was large was. Like, oh my gosh, I can do all these different things. The 10 screen is pretty big to begin with. Mm-hmm. That whole edge to edge thing. So you get that large screen experience with the 10, even though it's the smaller of all the phones. So it's really not that much different. So. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I just wondered, just going from the 10 to the 10R, because I'm like you. Before this, I had before the 10, I had the larger size phone.
Yeah.
And then I decided I was going to go for the 10, and I've come to like it. I don't feel. Would it be nice to have the extra screen real estate? Yes, but I don't want to carry it around. It's not convenient to carry. So
it doesn't feel different in my pocket than the 10 did. And it is. I mean, it's a little bit bigger, but in terms of and I'm a tall guy. I'm like 6'3" or whatever. So I've got pants with deep pockets, and I'm fortunate that way. It doesn't feel any different. It's still equally as uncomfortable to sit down with it in my pocket as it used to be. So yeah.
Okay. So battery life is an obvious one. Any factors there that you're noticing?
Yeah. So Saturday was the, day one with it. It was still doing all of its indexing and downloading photos and all of that. So my battery life on Saturday was not good, but also to be expected. Sunday, I was out all day. I did not charge my phone throughout the day at all. And I had a lot of things to do. I played a couple of shows and was keeping in touch with people in the midst of all that. And I think I ended the day above 50%, which is rare for me. Usually it's about 30. So yeah, I'm excited about that. Yeah. But it's too soon for me to really have an opinion on that. Yeah.
Right. Just seat of the pants. Do you feel that that's the size of the battery or the phone itself, the chipset and all that?
Well, I think it's the size of the battery combined with the screen, right? The higher pixel density on the OLED screen, right? I think it's 465 versus 327 or 427 versus 365, right? This phone has a much lower pixel density, which is what we're seeing when we look at it, than the OLED screen does, and so that takes less energy, and so I think that's a big part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I admit I keep forgetting about that. I mean, the difference in power consumption. We all think of just visualization, and that is a big deal.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Yeah, for sure. I'm looking it up here. Yeah, 326 on this, and I'll get there. Yeah, four and change. I should know, but I don't know. So, anyway, yeah, there you go.
Over the weekend, the tech press, and in fact, even before it came out, the tech press sort of did this, and I think that's always grossly unfair, but they sort of indicated that they think this is the best value in an iPhone. Do you hold with that opinion?
Totally. I think this is the phone that most people should buy if they want to upgrade now. Yeah. Yes, with an asterisk, right? I mean, it's a good phone. There, you're skipping out on the screen that you are. If you're upgrading, you probably didn't have anyway, so you're not going to notice, a downgrade in that standpoint. The camera, technically, less capable than the 10s and the 10s Max, but I think for most people, you're going to have the same experience I did, that it works great as a camera, as an iPhone camera. So no reason not to. Now, that being said, what are you saving? Well, you're saving somewhere between $200 and $300, right? Buying this versus a 10 or a 10s versus a 10s Max. And I got the 128 gig version. That doesn't exist in the other models, right? And so, that's why it's somewhere between $200 and $300 you're saving. That percentage-wise for the cost of the phone, that's a big chunk, right? Because, that's 20 or 30%. Yeah. Over the course of the 3 years that you're going to own the device, though, how big of a chunk is that? Like, take $300 even at the top end and spread it out over, 3 years. Okay, $100 a year. You're less than $10 a month. Does it really matter? I mean, to some people it might, but I would argue that if you're willing to spend $800 on a phone, that $200 to $300 over the course of 3 years probably doesn't matter. To be perfectly honest, it's not going to break the bank when you spread it out. So, financially, is it the right move? Yes, but not by as much as the percentages indicate.
Okay, so that's if you do the 3-year math. How about if you do what you and I both do and you do the 1-year math?
Oh, well, then it's far more economical, right? Because you're saving $300 over the course of a year, or $200 over the course of a year. Yeah.
Well, are you? Or I'm trying to think. I mean, well, I don't know about you. I'm on the trade-in program, so I'm
not, because I have 4 people.
That's what you hand them down.
Yeah. So this phone will be used for 3 or 4 years for sure. And that's fine. I don't think it's a bad phone. I think it's a good phone. Like I said, I think it's the phone most people should get, and I think it's the phone most people will get.
Well, I don't. It's interesting. I don't hear you indicating. I can't say that your comments have indicated any compromise. I mean, they're just like any device. There's some things that are a little better. Some things are maybe not quite the way you would like them. But overall, I don't hear you saying, okay, this is a major compromise on this phone versus the 10S, 10S Max.
Text clarity would be the biggest one. If I, now 48 at whatever, 60 hours in, whatever it is, text clarity is the one. But it's not. It's still pretty darn good. It's the reality. Like Apple's LCD screens are really good screens. So you're buying a top quality screen with this. It's just not an OLED screen. Okay, fine. Yeah. How many people have bought OLED for their TVs? Some have, for sure. But most no. And everybody still sits and watches them more than they do anything else. So
yeah, and you talk about a price difference there. You're talking a price difference.
Huge. Yeah, that's right.
In a big way.
Yeah.
This is one of those things that just intrigues me. You bought the product red, as you said. You like red. Do you think that's going to influence a lot of people? Not the product red, but the fact that they can get it in a color as opposed to the other.
Definitely. Everybody. It's interesting when the announcement happened. Of course, half of me was steeped in amongst our tech geekery people that most of whom did not prioritize the color option as an important factor, right? And then I deal with like my neighbors and my kids and my kids' friends and my adult friends that aren't tech geeks, and every one of them was like, "That's really cool. You can get a phone in a color." Like that was the 10 on announcement day. The 10R was the most popular phone amongst all of my non-tech friends to mention to me. Like, that's interesting to me. And to be perfectly honest, that may have influenced my decision to say, I need to check this thing out. So,
Really?
yeah.
With all the cases you can get, I mean, you can do it in Dayglow if you want.
No. I don't mean the colors. I mean people's interest in it. Like the general public's interest in this device was the thing that made me think, I need to learn more about this. This is interesting. There's a social element to this that's fascinating to me, that this is the one that people are interested in. So,
well, I agree with you. It has come up before with some of the previous models that I've been very intrigued, especially with the fact that you have the option to case the darn thing in pretty much anything you want, from stone to wood to
right,
the Dayglow plastic. So, the fact that you can buy it raw, and then most people, you got a clear case. Most people are going to stick it inside a case anyway. So,
right, that's true. Yeah,
you can't figure people.
But it doesn't surprise me that I was the only one that you polled for this particular show that got a 10R. Like, most of our tech press friends are not interested in the 10R.
I was shocked. I mean, I don't mind saying it. I sent out like 20, 25 invitations, and
here I am.
when you answered, you were in the first wave, and then when nobody else in the first wave went, I did a second wave, then a third wave, and it's like, didn't anybody buy this thing? So I started to wonder, is it even?
It's not the phone for geeks. It's not the phone that appeals to geeks, but I think it's totally fine for geeks. I think it's a great phone, and I'm not going to lie, the extended battery life is a huge factor for me. Like, I just hate having to deal with, my phone's, it's 30% and it's noon. Like, what did I do? How did I get here? Yeah. I don't like that, So, and I've said for years, I think if Apple added 2 millimeters to the phone and made it all battery, most people would be really okay with that decision. Apple would not be, but most people would be. Yeah.
And I would agree with you. I mean, I think that sometimes they do get a little bit hung up on super thin and super small.
They do.
And yet the 10X or the 10XS, kind of proves that is not the killer thing. Although, you know what? Although there are those people that still love their iPhone SE.
I was one of them. I really liked that phone. And if I could get the current tech in that, that would be an interesting thing too for me. Yeah. I don't know. I say that. I was really happy with the SE when it came out, and I got one and used it for a long time until the 7 came out, and it was like, oh, well, now I need to have the new chip. I need to have, I got to have faster processors, right? And so, then it was like, all right, I got to let the SE go. So, and now I've gotten used to the larger screen again,
Yeah. So we'll see what they do to us next year.
We'll see. Yeah, exactly. Although I think we're on, like the 10 was the big, changeover for us, right? The 10 even last year was almost a preview of the future, not here's our new phone, right? And now that is the new phone. Like, this is where we are, and we've got the edge-to-edge thing, and we've done away with the home button and all of that stuff. So, yeah.
And that was interesting. If you look back, and we've talked about this a little bit on the show, but not a lot. If you look back, that's the way the 10 was postured. This is sort of not quite a beta, but this is something extra special. And really, the 8 is the next generation.
Yeah.
And within a couple months, the 8 was like the 8, and the 10 is the current hotness. And
right.
And I mean, you don't usually see Apple lose control of the message. So they either did.
I don't think they lost control of the message.
Yeah, or it was planned. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. But it was like, here you can buy the prototype car of the future with the 10 is kind of how it was positioned initially. So, yeah. Okay.
Dave, I really appreciate you being on and giving us some thoughts, because there's nobody else to talk to about it.
My pleasure. No problem. Yeah.
So where can folks find you as if they don't know when you're not here sharing your experiences?
Yeah, sure. Twitter, I'm Dave Hamilton. You can find me, MacGeekGab.com. Gets to my Mac Geek Gab podcast, Gig Gab podcast, if there's any musicians that are curious about why all that stuff's in my life. And then the Small Business Show at businessshow.co. That's me.
Dave, thanks so much. It's great to see you. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good to see you, Chuck.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices. I don't have an iPhone XR, but Dave makes me wonder if maybe I jumped a little too quick. We'll see next year. Until the next time, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our MacVoices Facebook group and get more out of your Apple Tech with MacVoices magazine, free on Flipboard. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us at patreon.com/MacVoices and join these folks who help keep MacVoices coming to you. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CashFly at cashfly.com.